Hello and welcome to this Fit Alliance webinar. I think you are all now joining online. Today we're going to be exploring the state of eBL adoption in the container shipping industry. We're going to look at some of the key learnings from the DCSA's interoperability pilot, and we're going to also be examining the value of interoperability in accelerating industry-wide adoption. And our speaker today is Flavia Buso. Welcome to Flavia. Flavia heads up the documentation standards at DCSA, looking at things like booking, eBL, and arrival notices. She's helping global trade shift from documents to structured data and digital workflows. And before joining DCSA, she held several roles at Flexport, including trade manager and operations lead. Just before we get started, before I hand over to Flavia, just say to you, we're going to have time for questions at the end of the session. So if you want to use the buttons at the bottom of your screen, the chat or the Q&A, whatever, to type up some questions during the presentations, and then hopefully we'll get around to answering those at the end of the session. So now it's my pleasure to hand over to Flavia. Take it away, Flavia.
Hi, Grant. Thank you so much for having me. And good afternoon and good morning to everyone online. I will share my screen in 1 second. Are you able to see my screen?
We can see your screen, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So in the next 30 minutes, I want to walk you through what is the current state of the eBL adoption and some of the barriers. I will also go through the value of interoperability, why everyone is talking about it. And I want to tell you a little bit about the eBL interoperability pilot that we have completed this year and why it was a big milestone. And finally, I want to finish off by leaving you with a few practical takeaways and a 90-day roadmap towards eBL adoption that you can use as a blueprint. I will try to leave the last 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A, but you're free already to post your questions in the Q&A. I believe, Grant, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. But let me know if that's not the preferred way to submit questions. All right. So before I dive right in, I appreciate that not all of you may be familiar with DCSA. So let me give you a quick 1 minute elevator speech. We are a not-for-profit organization based in Amsterdam that was founded and funded by some of the major shipping lines that together represent about 3/4 of global trade by volume. And our goal is to make shipping simpler, more efficient, and sustainable through the use of open API standards. Open is the key word here. Our standards are free to use, they're open source, and also we are a vendor neutral organization, which means that we do not associate with any of our members or any of the solution providers we collaborate with. So as a standards body organization, we have developed standards in a number of areas, including operations, for example, on the track and trace and schedules space, and also on the documentation side, which is my area of expertise. And one of the key documents of global trade, as you know, is eBL. So in our 6 years of existence, we have taken eBL from not having a standard to releasing 3 versions of the standard each time, building new blocks or expanding the feature, for example, to reefer dangerous goods. We have moved from doing a proof of concept to test the standard to validating the standard, which is now a mature version and it's ready to scale. And if you look into the timeline right here, one of the major milestones that I want to highlight is the 2023 one. So in 2023, our member carriers, 9 back then at the time, they came together, coordinated by DCSA, and they made a very bold and historic commitment. They committed to move to 100% electronic bills of lading by 2030. And you have to imagine at the time, the eBL standard was not even published then. So that's why it was a very, very bold commitment. And this was not a DCSA commitment, but really our individual members coordinated by DCSA. But what does it really mean? So the purpose here is to move to paperless international trade by issuing all of the original bills of lading digitally by 2030. This is what stands on the commitment. But the true goal here, what we're trying to achieve, is to transition from documents to data using a standardized data-based API standard that DCSA has developed in collaboration with our members. So it's not really just about moving to a digital document. This is great, it's the foundational step, but what we mean is to move the industry towards using data. So seeing the eBL as a data envelope and not just as a digital document. So let me get some meat to the bones. So today we are at approximately 13% of eBL percentage. This includes all of the eBLs, both issued using DCSA standards and also using non-standard. So we are on track to achieve 100% of eBL towards 2030. And we have today already 4 member carriers that have implemented the eBL standard. We have ONE, HMM, Hapag-Lloyd, and CMA who have implemented it, and also 6 eBL solution providers that have implemented the standard. So you might be wondering, why am I even mentioning solution providers? Well, because today to issue an eBL, any party who wants to use an electronic bills of lading needs to go through a solution provider which has been approved by the IGPNI club. These are the clubs of the insurers of the carrier. So even carriers, they need to use eBL solution providers to issue their electronic bills of lading. And we have been collaborating with a dozen of eBL solution providers. There are new ones coming into the market being approved by IGPNI, either during the standards development process or more recently to really promote the adoption of the eBL standard. And we already have 5 of them that have enabled interoperability, so the ability to exchange eBLs across platforms seamlessly through the use of DCSA standards. Now, I want to also tell you a little bit about the headwinds that we had along the way. Probably the 2 most foundational barriers have been the lack of interoperability among these different eBL platforms, and either the uncertainty or the lack of legal recognition of eBLs as being the equivalent to the paper original bill of lading. But there are a number of other aspects that really have been a drag on the pace of adoption of electronic bills of lading. One of them is concerns about data safety and trust, also the fear of being the first mover. So everyone waiting for each other to be the first adopter, to make the first move, but also, let's face it, just competing priorities in the business. So the trade ecosystem have been thrown quite a few curveballs in the past couple of years. Think about starting from the pandemic into container vessels being stuck on Suez Canal, Houthi rebels attacks, tariffs being imposed on trade, changing the whole dynamic of global trade. So it's not been an easy road, and probably it will never be. But the means to achieve it are there, and it's possible. And there have been some major breakthroughs. First of all, on the legal side. So in 2023, the UK passed the Electronic Trade Documents Act, which basically made digital trade documents, so EBLs, legally equivalent to paper. And this was a major breakthrough because the majority of the contracts of carriage by sea are regulated by the UK maritime law. So this was really a key step forward. But also this year, we've seen India approving the Bills of Lading Act, also extending the digital recognition to electronic documents. And we have countries around the world like France, Singapore, or UAE, just to mention a few, that have adopted the MLETR frameworks that also recognize e-documents as equivalent to paper. On the other side, the major breakthrough was the ability to create platform interoperability. So in May this year, we have completed the first successful transfer of an eBL across different platforms for a real shipment. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this in a minute. Let me backpedal a little bit and tell you why we're strong supporters of interoperability. So historically, the eBL systems have been functioning as separate digital islands. What it means is that if you were onboarded in the same eBL platform, then you could exchange eBLs, no problem, but you couldn't transfer the same eBL to one of your trade partners unless it was on the same exact platform. So of course, this was a clear blocker to really scale the solution. So there are three key areas where interoperability makes a true difference. First of all, it is the key enabler for the broad and practical use of eBLs. So it allows eBLs to scale and reach their target of fully digital original bills of lading. But also it allows faster end-to-end digital workflows. So faster document cycles also means faster release of transfers, and improve security and traceability so that you always know where is the eBL, who is in control, and there is no need to switch to paper at some point along the journey because your partner is not using the same platform as you are. And maybe getting more into the value per stakeholder, if you look at the eBL solution provider, the key value there is that it increases your addressable market. You have more traffic on your platform, more users who can be using your platforms without having to bring all of their trade partners onto the same platform. It lowers your integration costs. You don't need to build bespoke one-to-one integrations, but you can use an interoperability standard API to really transfer the eBL data across multiple platforms. And also it allows for the network-wide adoption of the eBL. When I look at the user of the eBL platforms, the customers of the eBL platforms, so carriers, banks, and shippers and consignees, you will have the freedom to choose your own preferred platform. So you don't need to lean in on the carrier's platform of choice or the bank. You can still keep using your own. And eBL's interoperability also allows for lower fraud, lower compliance risk, which means that the eBL can't be tampered, can't be forged. It's not a fabricated bill of lading with printed on a printed machine, but it is really encrypted data with key traceability, with a key track record of in which hands it's been. And also in this case, it will lower operational costs and your integration since you don't need to be onboarded on multiple platforms. And even more importantly, for shipper and consignees, it allows to get faster release of your cargo, fewer delays, no more lost documents, no more courier fees or documents stuck in transit. Now, I want to tell you a bit about the interoperability pilot that we have completed. So the good part about this is that the heavy lifting has been done for you. So we started back in 2021 when we brought together a number of eBL solution providers to start discussing the idea of building a standard to enable interoperability among these platforms. And in the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism. How do we do this? Should we do this? Yes or no? Fast forward a year later, we demonstrated the feasibility of interoperability via proof of concept between CargoX and eDocs Online, two eBL solution providers. And in the meantime, we have been working very hard to develop both the technical standards, so the API to support this transfer of eBL, but also, and even more importantly, the legal framework to make it work. So to really make sure that if something happens, it is clear who carries the risks, who is liable at any point in time, so that we didn't leave any gap. But to make it official, we needed to get an approval by the IGPNI. This is the same group that approves also eBL solution providers. And this is key because even if a carrier is using an eBL solution provider, which has been approved by IGPNI, the moment they use eBL, interoperable eBLs, they without the legal framework, they would not be covered. So that's why this was a key part of the journey for us. So what was left was really trying it in the real world. So let me tell you about the setup. In May, we completed the pilot with 4 different organizations. We had HMM as the carrier, CargoX as their eBL solution provider, Suzano doing an intra-company shipment, and eDocs Online as their eBL solution provider. So we tested using a straight eBL, moving from Brazil to China, and the eBL envelope data being transferred across solution providers, across the carrier and their customers using the DCSA standards. So we had quite a few lessons learned on the way. First of all, that even though the standards had been published, the market needed time to adopt them. So at the onset, we only had HMM back then who had implemented the standard and was ready to go. But also that it is the very first step is to identify and onboard your pilot participants. It's not a task that you can leave last minute. You really need to really need to select who is going to pilot this with you. And because the adoption of the eBL standards was at the time quite slow, both by the eBL solution providers, but also by financial institutions, what it meant is that in practice, we had to narrow down the search and the scope of the pilot. What also proved essential was the legal framework, because it provided the multilateral framework to really give clarity both to the users and to the solution providers of what happens, who is covering what, and making sure that the carrier participating in the pilot was fully covered by the IGPNI insurance. And finally, also when conducting a pilot with so many parties in different time zones, with different priorities, running a business, running the regular business as usual in parallel, it really demanded to establish clear responsibilities and escalation path. So really make it clear from the beginning, what are your expectations? How quickly can you move on this pilot? And what should I do if you hit a roadblock? So all of this brings me to really give you an understanding of where do we stand today. The way I like to put it is that we are at the point where it gets harder before it gets easier. We're so close to the inflection point. We have the standards that have paved the way. They've been tested. They have been run in production. And the time to really get that momentum, that coordinated action is now. And yes, at the start, it's going to be quite difficult. You will have to run parallel processes for eBLs, for regular regional paper bills of lading, but that is the pain that is needed for the industry to go through to enable trade 3.0, to really move trade to a new era of digitalization where we can make use of data, not PDFs secured on blockchain, but data moving your cargo around the world. So with that, I want to leave you with 4 key practical takeaways. So if you're not an eBL solution provider and you would like to use eBLs, the first step for you would be to do your search, do your due diligence, select and get onboarded on your preferred eBL solution provider. We have enclosed here a link to the IGP&I page where you can see all of the eBL solution providers that have been approved by the group right until today. That list is growing, so also check it regularly. Step number 2 is, after you have been onboarded on an eBL solution provider, is to participate in either a case study or a pilot involving also your trade partners, and even more importantly, share your success stories. Tell the world about it. Inspire your partners, inspire your network to join the journey and really create that snowball effect to drive the eBL adoption. Step number 3, if you want to position your company as an innovative organization, you can sign the Fit Alliance eBL declaration. This is to signal to your industry partners that you're ready and you support eBLs. So today, I think we launched this about 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, and today we have over 350 different organizations that have endorsed the declaration. That includes financial institutions, ocean carriers, BCOs, freight forwarders. There is a really broad number of organizations that are in there. So also, they're all published on the Feed Alliance website. You can see who are the companies that have endorsed the declaration. So maybe also a good idea when you're looking for your pilot participants to check it out. And finally, also follow DCSA on LinkedIn. We are quite active on LinkedIn, and we publish updates not only on our standards, but also on industry research. We publish white papers. Last year, we actually published a report on the legal and regulatory barriers to the eBL adoption in various countries. Currently, we're working on a second report, including more Latin American countries, for example. So just stay up to date. I think this is a great and easy way to be on top of what's coming in digital trade. And the last step is a 90-day roadmap to adopt eBL. Please take it as just a blueprint. If you want to start, have no idea how to do that, these are some very simplified steps on how can you move from no eBL use to full eBL adoption in 90 days. So first 30 days, focus on getting ready. So understand what is your current bill of lading workflow. So really map it out end to end. Then start by selecting what is the potential route, what is the potential lane that you would want to start piloting eBL, and involve your compliance and legal teams early on to make sure that the lanes you are selecting are supported by the MLETR legislation, so that the use of eBLs will be recognized. And also, as I mentioned earlier, start as early as possible to align with your trade partners, your bank, carriers, the platform that you will have selected, on their readiness to participate in a pilot and the role that they want to take in the pilot. Next 30 days, launch the pilot. So you have done your homework, you know who you'll pilot with, which lanes you want to target. Now it's time to train your internal operations, documentations team on how this pilot is going to work. And also run weekly reviews so that if there is any roadblock in the pilot's execution, you can address it. You can address it as quickly as possible. And then the last part of the journey is to get up to scale. So you will have for sure lessons learned during the pilot. So incorporate that and expand to the next lanes that you have selected. And then the next one and the next one, so that little by little you start really incorporating EBLs into your business as usual practices. Lots of content, lots of topics to be discussed, and I know the audience is very varied. So you may have questions, and how do you follow up? DCSA and BINCO are part of the FIT Alliance, but we're not the only partners. We have FIATA for freight forwarders, the International Chamber of Commerce, and SWIFT. So feel free to contact us depending on your role, on the role of your organization. Just submit your questions. We have a contact form. We will be happy to support you in your transition to the electronic bill of lading. So thank you very much. Grant, over to you.
Thank you, Flavia. That's a very comprehensive presentation indeed. Lots and lots of information, and no surprises. A few questions perhaps for you to answer there. And I think it's quite a good one to start with. One of our participants has basically said, okay, look, if I want to start working with EBLs tomorrow, who are the other carriers and vendors already ready to go with this? And you've kind of pointed out that there's the Fit Alliance website that has all these like 350 signatures, so that's a good
Mhm.
place to go. But I think the more interesting part of the question is, why is it only these 350? Why isn't everyone ready for this digitalization process? Why are some people holding back? Why have we not really sort of managed to get everyone really excited about this and get them on board?
Yeah, excellent question. Let me unpack it a little bit. So we are, as DCSA, we are working on a few other pilots at the moment. We're working with ONE and HMM in collaboration with 5 EBL solution providers. I think I have them in the earlier slide. I mentioned earlier we have Enijo, TradeGo, CargoX, eDocs Online, and WaveBL. We're currently working with these carriers on the next live interoperable transaction. So I would say these are the ones where they're already switched on. They are putting in practice the DCSA standard. So that is one. And I think the second part of your question was related to why there is still, let's say, why not everyone, right? Like,
Mm.
what about the other members? What about the other EBL solution providers? So in terms of standards adoption, I have to tell you that our members have varied a very, very different tech debt or different technical systems. So, and different internal priorities. So we have seen some members moving very fast on some of the standards. For example, let's say with the booking standard or with the schedules, with track and trace. But in order to adopt the eBL standard, they need to first do a major uplift of their systems to be able to incorporate the API as part of their process. And these are massive organizations with agencies all over the world. So it is not an easy task. And considering that we've published the final version of the eBL standard only last year, I have to say it is already extremely impressive that 4 members have already adopted it. So it may seem slow from an external, an
Mm.
outsider point of view, but these organizations are doing incredible work to adopt the standards as fast as possible. And also, I never believed on a switch that says, okay, now it's fully on, all of the ecosystem is ready. By nature, it is going to be a journey to achieve interoperability rather than having it as a switch.
Okay, so one of the other questions has been about, is the kind of value proposition for all of the stakeholders involved, is that kind of clear enough? Is it a sufficient value proposition? Because as you quite rightly pointed out, for big enterprises, there's a lot of work to be done to do this. And is it simply because it takes a long time to change these processes to get on board with electronic bills of lading, or is there maybe some people not seeing, is there a real value in doing all of this? So we're going to get something out the other end.
Yeah, you're right. So the value proposition is not perhaps strong enough or clear enough to all of the stakeholders that should move to eBL. Um, but there are two aspects to this. First is that carriers are committed to this. They have made their CEO have signed that by 2030 this will be the top priority to move to EBL by 2030. And I do believe that if the lack of adoption from the market is not driving that goal fast enough for them, I do believe that they will create more incentives for customers to jump on board. It's incentive creation is not something that DCSA is involved in. It's not something that DCSA will be driving. So this really will come from each
Mm.
individual organization, but they have already committed. So it's not that they are saying, or how can I say, lag behind, as in, oh, let me wait if our customers are asking for it. The machine is already in motion. They are doing work. They are already making investments to make EBLs available. So they will, I do believe that they will create incentives in the market to see more value if they don't see that EBLs are picking up naturally, so to speak.
Okay. So I have another question here from my friend Harriesh, I can see online here. And he's asking about the sort of uptake level. And I think in one of your slides, you said the update for or the level of adoption at the moment is 12.8%. So you need to 13%, which I think is more than double what it was last year. So it is increasing. And he's also asked about on the bulk side. Obviously, we're focusing here on the container industry. It's a slightly different value proposition because the sheer number of e-bills and way bills that are issued every year. Um, just as an aside on this, because BIMCO kind of focuses on the bulk shipping side in terms of e-bills, we don't have that same sort of easy to quantify number like 13% of the liner industry because the bulk industry is much more fragmented. We had a big success with our 25 by 25 campaign, getting 25% of iron ore shipped into China on e-bills within the space of 2 years. We do see the numbers increasing on the bulk shipping side, and what we're increasingly seeing is different commodities now switching to e-bills as well. So we do see growth, but it's much harder to give a industry wide figure for that. But again, we're focusing here on the line industry. So I think, Flavia, I mean, you're seeing a doubling of figure, so it is increasing, even though some people might argue it's still a relatively small figure. But for the reasons I guess you're explaining, that it's the commitment is there. It just takes time to change things. So I guess again, it will increase next year as well.
Is our
Okay.
expectation, yes.
Yeah. I guess coming back to interoperability, which is sort of strong theme in all of this, it's probably fair to say that the a piece of paper is 100% interoperable, and that's what we're trying to replicate in the digital world. I mean, you could use a paper bill of lading right around the world in lots of different countries. It just works, and we're trying to mimic that in the digital world, and that presents challenges in some way. But I guess what I wanted to ask was, in terms of the platform providers themselves, why have they not sort of, jumped on board this interoperability thing sooner? Why has it taken so long to get to this point where we're now talking, well, this is the last kind of big obstacle for electronic bills of lading and similar documents? Why is it taking so long, and is there resistance to it?
Well, I wouldn't call it resistance, but there are parallel works also where investments have been made, projects have been running, and
Mm.
I'm talking about bilateral integrations between platforms, for example, rather than a fully interoperable ecosystem
So
where,
just to interrupt you, so when you say
yeah,
bilateral agreement, so two or more platforms
between,
just agreeing commercially that they can
yes,
exchange a bill of lading. So
exactly,
it's
yeah.
a form of interoperability, but it's not, as you say, it's not global. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in a sense, you are already creating some sort of interoperability, but it's more of a pair by pair, step by step. Um, and this has been going on in parallel with the interoperable work that DCSA has been doing. So while DCSA was in the workshop building the API, the technical standards, the legal framework,
Mm.
EBLs were already out there, were already existing. So it's not that the world of EBL solution providers has been sitting and waiting around. So there are also these parallel works being conducted, which I think is positive. But I do see the limitations of it, as in building a bilateral integration, perhaps a custom made one-to-one connection doesn't automatically extend that to other platforms. So scaling in that sense would mean most likely repeating the effort with every new platform you want to bring on board to build another peer-to-peer connection rather than an industry-wide interoperability. And imagine what I'm talking about, what I've been talking about in this presentation is very recent. In May, we have conducted the first pilot in production. Earlier this year, I think it was February, the IGP&I finally approved the legal framework, which we have been working on together with eBL solution providers for many years, for 3 to 4 years, to get this off the ground. So it's really this is why I'm saying that we are at the point now where the foundation work has been done, either by some other EBL platforms have already tested this, have already done the heavy lifting for you. Some other customers have been participating in the pilot. So now it's really, why not? Like, what is holding you back?
One of the key considerations, I think, for any company thinking about moving to a digital platform using electronic bills of lading is going to be security and being able to identify the other parties involved and transparency and audit trails, all these sort of things. I mean, are you kind of satisfied that the necessary standards are in place to comfort people and all, and making sure these systems are entirely secure?
Yeah, and actually, one point of the interoperability standard that DCSA has put in place is also a control tracking registry. This basically it's a registry to ensure that there is no double spending. What does it mean? To ensure that the eBL is controlled by one and only platform at any point in time, so that you cannot present the same eBL twice, or you cannot use it as collateral twice, for example. So this is part also of the standard building blocks that DCSA has developed. But it's something that as a customer of the platform, you would not necessarily see. This is something internal between eBL platforms exchanging emails. But in case something goes wrong, that's your source of truth. And there are also other solutions implemented by the platforms that serve the same purpose. So there are solutions out there in the market to solve this, the risk of what happens if something goes wrong.
Okay. So in the context of the platforms, the way they operate at the moment, they're essentially closed systems. All of the stakeholders have to sign up a set of terms and conditions to use that sole
Mhm.
platform. If we then move in the near future to interoperability between platforms, how is that transparency also maintained and that sort of integrity that you will always know where an e-bill is, who's currently responsible for it, who has title to it, all these sort of things. That's an important part of the process. If you're going to have interoperability, you need to maintain transparency right across multiple platforms. I mean,
Mhm.
are the standards in place for that to be achieved as well?
Yes, so as part of the legal framework of the interoperability standard, we have created this unified multilateral agreement that basically also clarifies what are the liabilities of users on different platforms. But if you are a user on one platform, you have already signed the rule books or the bylaws of your own eBL solution provider. You will not need to sign again rule books, EBLs of another EBL solution provider. So you will be bound by what you have signed with your own EBL solution provider. The legal framework that we have developed is both complementing the rule books of each eBL solution provider. That is basically an annex to what you have already signed. And it's something between different eBL solution providers. But then again, you as a customer, as the end user, you will not have to be involved in that contract between eBL solution providers. You will be bound by it, by the rule books that you have already
Mm.
signed upon onboarding.
Okay, all right. Now, the last question for you, Flavia, and it's something that interests me as well. I'm quite comforted by the fact that one of our participants asked the same question as well. And it was you mentioned early on in your presentation about this concept of documents to data, that essentially what we're working with now in the industry is obviously a paper bill of lading. Everybody knows what they look like. They have a particular format, and we've kind of gone through the process of digitizing that and then creating a digital copy of this where we have data in that we can operate on. And I think what you were suggesting that really what the next step is, the future is that we don't really have that visualization anymore, that sort of bill of lading form, that really all we're looking at is data and controlling that data. And that kind of question is, what's the benefit of moving on to that kind of next step where we no longer have this something that people can recognize as a bill of lading? We're just really looking at kind of data points now.
Well, it's imagine having a PDF versus data flowing into your transport management system. So it's really about being able to go next step. You could run analytics. You could link up your payment system to the eBL data that you have there. And well, potentially moving from a world where you get delivery against payment as a sequential moment to a parallel moment where you have secured eBL data, you have secured payment, and both of them can move at the same time, where there is no disadvantage between do I pay you first? Do I get the bill of lading first? But it is really going into a simultaneous scenario.
Mm. And do you think that's quite a big step for the industry, that this kind of conceptually that we don't have something that looks like the bit of paper we've had for hundreds of years. Now we kind of don't can't see it anymore. So I think most of the platforms have some means of visualizing the electronic bill of
Mm-hmm.
lading for people as well, and obviously the ability to print it out if one of the stakeholders doesn't want to do this. So it seems it's quite a big sort of change, I
Yeah,
think, for the industry.
and don't get me wrong, even as part of the API, there is the possibility to attach a visualization of the bill of lading so that you will always have, if you want to, it is an optional component of the API specifications, but if you want to, you can attach a visualization, say a PDF, for example, or a PNG, whatever you want to attach there, as part of the data payload that you're transferring between trade partners. So also via the eBL standard, you can request a switch to paper if it's needed for customs purposes or for whatever purposes you're shipping to somewhere in Africa. There's no electricity, there's no internet, and you need the paper copy. Then you will be able to do that. So I don't see this as, let's say, it is an incredible change for trade. I call it trade 3.0, but one that can still accommodate also for the current ways of working of the EBL, because it's all gonna be gradual until we get there.
Okay. I said that was the last question. I lied. We've got 2 minutes left. I've got one quick question that just popped up on the screen here that I'd like you to tackle it. And it says that currently carriers they've already got a preferred EBL provider. They've already chosen one or whatever. So they're not agnostic to all these different platforms. How does the DCSA anticipate overcoming the current state via its standards? So if we're saying we're opening it up, you can use any platform, but the big liner companies have already settled on one. How's the standard going to impact that choice?
Well, I don't think the standard will impact the choice of EBL solution providers, but actually it will provide the freedom to not having to bend or to be onboarded on the carrier's preferred EBL solution provider. And this is the one of the key points for interoperability. You don't have to bring all of your trade partners. onboard the same platform, or you don't have to stick to one carrier or to one platform to be able to do transactions with all of the group. Do we have full interoperability in the market? No, not yet, right? But we are already quite a big cloud that has enabled interoperability using DCSA standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways, the liner industry operates in a particular way. The big liner companies are the ones that are kind of driving this, implementing electronic bills of lading, in contrast to the bulk shipping sector, where it will normally be the shipper that decides they want to use an electronic bill of lading and will pick a platform and say to the carrier, use this platform. I guess for them in the future, they don't have to do that because if they have interoperability, then the owner can subscribe to one single platform as carrier, and it doesn't matter what the shipper has. So I guess in the bulk shipping sector, it might have a different sort of impact, but a good impact as well. So, Flavia, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Absolutely fantastic. This has been recorded, and we will also share your presentation if that's okay, because there's some valuable
Of
information in there
course.
and some very useful QR codes for people if they weren't quick enough with their phones when you were talking. We'll share that with everyone as well. So, and thank you very much indeed to our audience. So it's thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and goodbye.